what's up guys? Welcome back to another day at BS for Build. In today's episode, we're gonna rebuild the inner skin of that damaged quarter panel. So when it got in a wreck, a lot of that metal got all smushed and mangled. So I cut it out, I straightened back up what we could, saved what we could, cut out the rest, and now we're gonna go in and rebuild that structure. What that's gonna do is keep all the road debris out of our quarter panel so nothing flies up into essentially the inside of the car. And it's also gonna give us a nice wheel well, and it'll finish out the trunk area so the trunk will be all nice and sealed up too. Keeping all the elements out of the inside of the car. Lots of fun metal work today. I'm very excited to get started. Stay tuned. So here's what we need to do inside the quarter panel. We need to make a connection between that inner skin right there that's all sealed up to the quarter panel right here. So I'm gonna build a strip that goes all the way up and around, connecting to this piece that we straightened out a while ago, and that's where that will stop, and it will all go straight out connecting to the carbon fiber piece. Then on the inside here, that needs to be rebuilt as well, and then from here we should be able to get a good idea of how to build kind of a flat connecting section that will finish out the floor in the trunk. Now to get started, what I wanna do is build as many known pieces as we can, and this is besides the quarter panel being here, this is the only other known piece that we know is the right shape and size. So when you put it up here, it's pretty close, but it's not quite right because there's some bends inside this panel right here and inside that panel right there. There's still some bent spots. So what I'm gonna go ahead and do is clean that up, bend it out straight, drill holes in it so I can weld through it, and then spot weld this quarter panel onto here, as well as then connecting it up with some screws. I'll probably just use some temporary self-tappers. I gotta figure out, I think those need to be cut out on this quarter panel for our bumper bracket to go in there. So hopefully I'll use that as some material that I can drill through. And we will attach this piece onto the car before we start building the rest of the inner wheel well. All right, we got our corner piece tack welded in here. You guys saw that I had to build a block off plate for this. This is normally a kind of a one-way air flap. You can see it on the other side right here. And I didn't buy one of those, but definitely one is enough for that trunk section. I don't need another one. So what we did was we welded in a block off plate, and then this will get seam sealed around. Every seam obviously needs seam sealer before we're done with this. So we welded in a block off plate, we tack welded this in place, and we got some good lines coming through here. Some of this needs a little bit of working around as well. But what I want to do before we go too far is I'm gonna drill some small holes where these spot welds go, and I'm gonna use some tack screws, self-tapper screws, and screw the quarter panel to this piece, and then we'll test fit the bumper and make sure everything lines up nicely before we get too far into this. Well, unfortunately, I can't hold the camera and the bumper in place at the same time, but it does fit. Fits up really nicely. This body line right here where this meets the bumper is perfect, absolutely perfect. So, and the bottom's looking great too, no issues there. So we're ready to move on. And to move on, I'm gonna jump into this inner wheel well and start cutting out some cardboard templates. And I'm also gonna grab the wide body kit piece and fit it over this and draw a line so we know how much of the kit kind of covers and everything. Make sure that we're not gonna be cutting away too much material from the quarter panel. And I'm gonna make some templates, that way then I'll recreate them out of steel before I weld them in there. But I wanna start from kind of around here and start working my way up, I think. Templated out pieces 1, 2, and 3. That'll get us from this point right here all the way up and around and then back to about here. So before we weld those in, there's some more repairs I want to do. I'm going to try and figure out a situation to clean this area up because there's a crinkle in here that I really don't like the look of. And then also, I don't know if you guys can see right here. Nope, you can't. It's very dark. Let me pull the quarter panel off and I'll show you guys. Okay, so what I was saying is I'm gonna go ahead and do some pulling on this and see if we can get it to straighten out. If not, I'm just gonna cut out this damaged piece and we'll weld in a new one. And then on this seam right here where we had some separation during the wreck, like that spot weld right there and the separation through there, I don't really like the looks of that. So I'm gonna hammer that down, clean it up, and then I'm gonna do some more welding on that seam to doubly reinforce it. Looks like These 3 spot welds are bad, the rest are good, but I'm just gonna add reinforcement all the way through the railing, and back up here I'm gonna do the same thing. Then when we weld in our next piece onto here like this, we'll have a good base to start from. All right, well that's more than enough attempts to catch the car on fire that I'm comfortable with. So I've spot welded this stuff kind of back up, some extra spot weld reinforcements, not that any of them were already really gone, but just adding in a little bit more reinforcement. Welded this plate to this plate once again, kind of reinforced that where I had cut through before. And then you can see I just did a couple stitch welds here, 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 and here. I reviewed this and none of this is actually lost any spot welds or anything like that, so I'm not really gonna go through that again. So the next thing I'm gonna go ahead and do is take my 3 templates, cut them out of some 18 gauge steel, and then we'll start to get those in place. I think before I weld them in, I'm probably gonna have to put the quarter back on, but we'll get them all ready and prepped, and then we can put the quarter on and start getting them in place. Well, it doesn't look awfully impressive. It looks kind of strange because we have this flat sheet metal next to all this really cool crinkled stuff. But anyways, this is the inner wheel well that's going to block all the water from getting into our quarter panel. I need to make a sliver for right here, and up top we need a sliver for there, and for there need to make it a little extension piece. And it's interesting because the quarter panel, as it comes up, it gets closer in, so that this piece has to actually get closer in as it comes up here. But this is a really good, how we have this set up is actually really good as far as staying super close to the quarter panel, which is great for when we need to join them later. And it's high enough up that it gives us our massive, massive wheel arch. So the next thing I'm gonna do is add some more welding coming in through here, and build those slivers, and then hammer all the pieces super close and weld them to each other as well. All right, we're all welded up. I'm calling that's our wheel well now. That's all built. Once you add in all these tack welds, all these spot welds, it gets really, really nice and strong. So it becomes very, very rigid, even though it's not super thick metal. It's all of that structure that gets added in there. So you can see on the back side here, we connected the piece of the car that was already here and left over, and then everything through there. And remember that the tack welds are just for the structure there to make sure that all this metal stays in place, which trust me, it's gonna. And then the seam sealer that we're gonna put in over all of these seams is what's gonna really keep all the weather out, all the moisture, all the water, all the everything out. So the next thing that we need to do is test fit the quarter panel one more time, build a template from the spot coming here down to here and where it's going to connect with this piece. Then we're going to build a template for this as well. So they're both going to kind of come down through here, and then we're going to close it all off with a nice little flat piece that connects into the trunk floorboard right there, and then weld all that up as well. All right, we've got all the pieces templated and cut out of steel here, so it's time to go ahead and weld everything up, tack weld it in place, make sure it all looks good, and then fully weld it out. Learned a really painful lesson just now. If you're gonna wear gloves and you're gonna weld, don't wear not welding gloves. That's a piece of welding wire that jumped through my glove and burnt its way into my finger, and I could not get it out. Now I gotta grab needle nose and cut it out of my finger. This hurts. On the plus side, it's already cauterized, and I got to use my fancy first aid kit. damn it. I guess now's as good a time as any to do another update. So I got a little bit more welding to do in here. We need to build a patch piece that's gonna go cover here. And I got this piece welded in, that piece welded in, and then the big main piece welded in. So it's mainly just a little bit more touch-up welding and then a big patch piece. Small patch piece, medium-sized patch piece. That is a wrap on the welding. We got everything all done. We got that bottom patch in, that all welded up, and everything's looking good. So the trunk, on that side it goes over there to that piece like that kind of, and then this side it goes over there. Now, obviously the quarter panel kind of closes us off here. When you look right in there, that piece right there is the quarter panel. So it's pretty similar. They're actually designed completely different as well. They're not supposed to really look the same, but it looks good. And my trunk liner pieces will fit in here, and they obviously cover all of this in the end. So the next step is to clean all the welds and all the metal up with acetone and spray primer. All right, we got everything all cleaned up and primered up. The primer adhered really nicely. We didn't have any reactions or anything, which means we did a good job cleaning. So that's awesome. Next thing we're gonna do, seam seal. So we got a bunch of seam sealer in here. We're using gray. And on every single one of these seams, you know, just anything that looks like it's got a gap between it or anything like that going all around here on the inside and on the outside, we gotta seam seal this whole thing up. All right, we are all sealed up. So the seams look a lot better once you seal them all up, and it starts to kind of really take shape, I feel like, once you give it a paint job as well. So you can see on the inside, it's all seam sealed all the way around, and then the trunk seam sealed all through here as well. So I'm gonna give this a couple minutes to set up, and then you can paint over it. The top part, this is sealer primer that I sprayed on here. So this is gonna be fine just to leave as it is. It's the same as this primer over here. It's actually just a little bit more protective for the steel. On the underside, we're gonna use a Rust-Oleum truck bed liner. Spray that as a nice undercoating on top of our sealer primer. And then on the inside where the trunk is, I'm gonna spray that white. Looks like the rest of the trunk is just kind of overspray. It's like the same primer as on the outside, which is gray, and then overspray white, but I figured white will probably look the best. So I'm gonna spray this whole section of the trunk white. All right, paint's still wet, but you can get the idea. White on the inside, all sealed up, away from the elements, sealed around the backside, underneath, truck bed liner, under the wheel well. Looks good. That suspension is garbage, so the overspray on it doesn't matter. And then we got primer on the rest of this stuff. And when we put our quarter panel up against here, it's gonna very nicely be like no more than a 1/4 inch away, and we will seal our quarter panel up to this at a later time. We did it! All right, everyone, that is a wrap. Thank you so much for watching. BSforBuild.com if you want to pick up some merch. We got some new merch on there. Hit the subscribe button. If you like this build, you will not want to miss the next one, and you don't want to miss us finishing this one. So smash that subscribe button, and that's about it, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Peace!